Okay, I'm going to be recording so that this can be saved in your Burnout Proof Academy account. You will always, as long as the internet is around and I'm around and those types of things, you should always have access to this. So you can come back and rewatch, you know, catch up on things that you may have missed the first time. I have to confess, I packed this hour. So I hope you're be ready for that, but also know that you can go back and watch again. And my hope for you is that you will take away one new actionable thing. Okay, so you might get a lot, you might get some good reminders. A lot of this stuff is reminders for us. A lot of self-care is reminding ourselves over, bringing ourselves back to what we know again and again. But hopefully you'll find hopefully you'll find one thing that you can implement, and that would be the goal, is that you would come out of this with just that one thing. Okay, so just be listening for that. Try not to feel too overwhelmed by the information, and know that each of you may resonate with a different thing. So I put in, basically this is like a summary of the longer Burnout Proof Bootcamp course. It's a 6 weeks to a year course. It takes people a while to get through because it's some deep inner work on boundaries and joy and saying no and working with our inner critics, things like that. So I've just like taken a sampling of all the best parts of that to stick into here in case you're interested in that, but also in case it's not the right time for you to do a deeper course and you just need those like tidbits. So that's the goal tonight. I will be watching the chat, so feel free to use that. I'm setting up my screen here. Okay, and I'm going to share my screen with you here. And just to check, is sound and audio working well for everybody? Okay, okay, excellent, good. I want to know if at any time that changes, I want to know, so chat me if that happens. Okay. So here are our slides, and this means that I see a lot less of you. So on my screen, I like to know, like I like to know when I'm the person that a speaker is seeing. So I'm seeing Jennifer Oglesby, Jess's iPhone, Rob, Jennifer Somerville, and Rebecca Valor. So you all are my like faces, if that's okay. Okay, awesome. So here we are, Burnout Proof 101. And just a short intro. Again, I'm Bree. I've been an interpreter for 20 plus years, mostly in VRS. It's been the last 16 years that I've been solely in VRS. And then the last about 10 years, I have been a life coach, and now I'm working as specifically as a mental health coach. And so I've meshed those two loves and those two fields, and the Burnout Proof Academy work that I do with interpreters is really focused on self-care, mental health, emotional health, some physical health stuff too, just to keep us doing the things that we love. And that is, especially right now, is especially challenging. So I'm really glad that you're all here in this. Okay, so our goals tonight. I feel like this is lofty, but I'm just gonna move through it. So we're gonna define burnout, just so we all kind of know what, that's such a trendy word. And so I'll tell you what I'm talking about when I'm saying burnout and how it's affecting you, maybe what its effect has been on your life. We'll talk about why boundaries are so essential to our self-care. And then this magic piece that I call budgeting your energy. We'll talk about that a little bit. I want you to leave here feeling better about saying no and able to make more time for yourself and prioritize your joy, which is a really radical thing to say right now. I know, like I feel it as I say it out loud, to say like we need to be prioritizing joy, and that might feel scary. And then lastly, for us to be able to solidify some new habits so that we're not muscling these things, so that it's not like one more thing to check off on our list, but it's like actually feeding us and it feels sustainable. Okay, those are the goals. Okay, prepare for liftoff, because literally I'm like gonna go through this stuff. You have your handouts. Okay, so you have your self-care plan. And this really is what I want you to feel like when you leave here. You'll have these very specific things so that this does not feel overwhelming. You have the slides, you have extra resources. So if there's parts of this talk that you want to dive deeper into, I've included people that I've pulled this information from and that I learned from. So those are there for you. And again, just do one thing at a time. So if you come away with this with one thing, that would be awesome. Okay. You know what I'm realizing? I'm going back before we lift off. I told you to have essential oils, and I want to just do a super quick like landing right here because I'm feeling this like let's go, let's go, let's go. So I love essential oils for emotional support. So if you happen to have essential oils with you, whatever you have is great. I have tea tree oil and eucalyptus, which are in a lot of things. So if you have anything like that, or even a plant nearby, any plant, we're gonna love on some plants and let plants love on us for a minute. But if you want to take, so what I'm going to do is take the tea tree oil and I'm going to put it on the back of my neck. Tea tree oil is a great clearer of energy. So whatever has happened in your day, whatever, you know, interactions you had, if you were working, if you were with kids or other people, or maybe alone and you're feeling that drain, tea tree oil can be a helpful, like, cutting that, like some of those cords, those energetic ties that we have to other people. And then the second one is eucalyptus. I'm going to put this across my forehead. This is the oil of wellness, and which is so, I feel like, appropriate for everything I talk about. But it helps us remember that like we have what we need inside. We are whole, we are well, and we're tapping into that right now. We're remembering. Okay, so oils are one thing that helped me to do that. And then if you would, and I'm gonna like slow my pace and slow my energy, I'm gonna close my eyes. Feel free to close your eyes. I'm just gonna lead us through maybe a 30-second drop in. So if you feel comfortable, close your eyes or just drop your gaze so you're not taking in the computer screen. And just feel where your body, where your weight is making contact with the seat below you or the ground below you, whatever is holding you up right now. Just bring your attention right to that spot where it is supporting you. It's holding you. And if you are seated, I want you to try to like elongate your spine, really become aware of how your spine is holding your muscles. Like you can almost drape your muscles over your bones, over your spine, and your spine should hold you up. And we just want to relax in that, like that awareness for just a moment that we're supported right here. There's nothing to do. There's no certain way we need to be. We can just rest in this moment. And if you want to just put your hands on your belly and feel the rise and fall of your belly for just a second. Become aware of your breath and how that is supporting you without you even having to think about it. And if you want to just like release a few breaths through your mouth, maybe sigh. Just like let go of anything that's ready to be let go of. And then feel free to open your eyes when you're ready. Come back to the screen. Okay, that's so helpful for me. I hope it felt supportive to you too. Okay, so now we're gonna lift off. All right, so this is from the research. What is burnout? Burnout, according to these wise researchers, and I think maybe we've all seen this because this is passed around a lot, but what it is defined as is a psychological syndrome of emotional exhaustion, depersonalization, reduced personal accomplishment that can occur among individuals who work with other people in some capacity. So I think as interpreters, as human beings, we can all say, oh yeah, we can feel various levels of this affecting us in our lives, or maybe at different times. And I think certainly in this moment for so many people, this is happening. So what does that mean though? I like to distill this down to basically, we cannot be pouring from an empty vessel. There needs to be some circulation of energy, some input to help us sustain our output, because we're really good at output and often we're not so good at input. So we're going to look more at input. Okay, the costs of burnout. These are things we all know, right? We're experiencing things like pain, illness, weight gain, poor sleep, low energy, strained relationships, and all that that means. Loss of passion, creativity, joy, loss of enjoyment in our work, possibly. So these are some possibilities. I want you to tell me, and I just learned about this new awesome tool on Zoom where we're gonna do a poll, hopefully. Now the option has gone away for me. Oh, where's my poll? Well, maybe we're not. I saw it earlier and now it's not here. Oh, here it is. Okay, it's up at the top. I found it. Okay. Launch the poll. Thank you for bearing with me. All right, so go ahead and select. These are just some of the options about like how burnout affects us. You may not relate to the word burnout. You may just feel like it's stress or it's something else, but let us know. What have you experienced? And I don't know if you all, can you see the results as they're coming up right now? Okay, I'm gonna share them with you as soon as I see it gets close to done. If anybody's not playing, that's okay, but it looks like I think everybody's gonna get there. Okay, 100%. Okay, so I'm gonna end polling and I'm gonna share results. This is fun for me. Okay, so now it says you all are viewing the results. Okay, so this is our makeup. So half of us have experienced pain, illness, injury related to stress or burnout, weight gain, poor sleep, over 50%. Low energy seems to be the winner. Strained relationships, about 50%. Decreased passion and creativity and joy, and some loss of enjoyment in our work. Okay, all right, this is what we're dealing with. And this is very normal. This is what I see in my work as a coach too. So, all right. We're gonna kind of focus on some of the, what I call like the antidotes to these. These are some of the causes of burnout. Like what gets us into this place of pouring from an empty vessel, of not having enough input to keep up with our output. So skimping on the basics. And this is not news to any of us. Like this is not going to blow your mind, right? Food, water, movement, rest. And how hard is it to do that on a regular basis? It's hard for me, and I teach this stuff. I think it's hard for most human beings because our lives, human life is not about consistency. Things are changing all the time. So it's a matter of how do we keep refocusing, recalibrating, course correcting in order to be including these things and prioritizing these things and not getting caught up in the ways that we beat ourselves up, all of that drags us down. Okay, the second big cause of burnout that I see is us not being aware of and not honoring our boundaries. And this can show up in a really tangible way in terms of mixing up our yeses and nos, not knowing what our genuine yes or no is, and then not expressing it or not setting that clearly. The next is around our energy and how we're monitoring and using our energy, and I call that energy budgeting. believing our inner critic. That's a huge drain on our emotional resources, that inner critic. And then trying to muscle our self-care, trying to make it one more thing that we're going to check off, and that becomes a drain too. So these are some of the causes that we will touch on as we're going through. Okay, so the first is we're going to go back to basics. And this is, like I said, this is not news, but there might be a few new tips in here for you. So just be open to like, oh, I haven't tried that, or oh, I used to do that and I forgot. So the first thing I want you to do is pick one of these four categories, and you'll see on your worksheet that there's a place for you. Number 2 says, I'm going to focus more on doing which of these things. So you can tell us in the poll here. I'm launching it right now so we can see how, who's doing what. It seems to be, I don't know if that's working on your side. It looks like it may be not working, but go ahead and choose one. So are you going to be focusing on water, food, sleep, or movement? And then that will cue you in on which one of these slides to really pay attention to. And it looks like our poll's not working, but that's okay. Okay, so you've got your focus. And your focus, you just like probably know off the top of your head, like, I really need more water, or oh, I really need more movement. For me, it's almost always movement. That is always the one that gets lowest on my list. So that's sort of a consistent like refocusing for me. Okay, nutritious food. And that can mean so many things, but a lot of times what I talk about when I teach about ways to nourish our bodies is we can almost always eat more vegetables, and we can almost always eat less sugar. Those are kind of across the board for everyone. Within, we have all kinds of different dietary needs and things like that, and that's great. But really, even more basically than that is what feels good in our bodies, like what gives us energy, what ends up feeling good for the long haul. So some ideas if you're looking to up your nutritious food intake is, and this slide was made pre-COVID, so it says grocery shop once a week. That may or may not be, realistic for you right now, depending on what area you're in. But just in terms of like having a plan in place when you go into the store, shopping that outer perimeter first, where you're getting your veggies and, maybe your meat or things like that before you start going into the middle aisles. Joining a CSA, a like crop share, getting a veggie box or a meal service like HelloFresh, who services like that make pretty like clean meal options available, and then you just have to like put them together when they get to your house. Maybe having a meal prep time, that's a really helpful one for me. So like I'll go grocery shopping for the week, and then I'll chop up my veggies and get that stuff ready so that it's easy when I'm hungry and tend to make choices that don't end up feeling as good. I can grab something that feels good. And then a green smoothie routine, something like that, where it's like you are front loading a lot of stuff that feels good to your body. And so then during the day, maybe you feel like, okay, I've done that for myself. Gets you off on a good foot. Okay, so that's nutritious food. Plenty of water. So something to shoot for is the 8x8 rule, 8 glasses of water, 8 ounces each. I've read all kinds of studies on this that those numbers may be totally made up. What's more important is that when we're thirsty, we're drinking, and some of us don't feel that thirst as often. So it may need to be a more conscious thing. Carrying water with you can be really helpful in that, and making it taste good. So having, like, I have been putting orange wedges in my water, which I love the flavor of. I also use my essential oils in my water. They have to be food grade, so they have a label on them that has nutrition facts on them. But a lot of things like those flavored bubbly waters, those are flavored with essential oils too. So the same kind of thing, but you can add, whatever flavors taste good to you and make you feel like you enjoy drinking your water. Sometimes ice, people like ice, or herbs like mint, things like that. Okay, so we're going to drink plenty of water. We're going to get restful sleep. This one is trickier. And these ideas are a little more time intensive to explain, but I'll just really quick touch on them and then I'll have more resources for you about them. Get on the sleep train means when you start to get sleepy around 9, 10, 11, like often our bodies are geared, depending on where you live in the sunlight, but when you start to get that first sleepy wave around like a reasonable kind of bedtime, that's your sleep train pulling into your station. If you get on it, you have an easier time getting to sleep. Theoretically, in terms of the hormones and chemicals that our bodies make, you're harnessing that natural sleep chemical that you have. If you let your train go by and you're like, I want to stay up and watch one more show, or I'm finally getting quiet time after the kids went to bed, or whatever it is, you are passing on that train. That means that you're going to have to wait for the next train to come around and it might be late. So this idea has been really helpful for me in terms of like actually getting on that first train when it comes in. Counting affirmations instead of sheep. Sometimes we struggle, I mean me, struggle with like the active brain at night where it's like I lay down in bed and then my mind is just going. And counting affirmations has been helpful. Just giving it a job, thinking about things that were good in the day or things that I'm thankful for or things that help me to feel good rather than the worries that tend to come up at night. And then for the worries, the bedtime box, imagining that there's a box next to my bed that has a lid. And when a worry does come up in my mind, I like visualize putting it into the box, closing the lid on the box. You'll be there in the morning. Like I don't have to worry about you right now. And I can get to bed. So those are some ideas for helping us get to sleep. I love it. Yes, how to stay asleep. I want to do a whole sleep class. So we might dive into this and I'm going to save that question. Yeah, that's a longer one. We could also talk about it in the group actually. If you want to chat in the comments under this in our course, I'd love to have this conversation and get your wisdom too, because you all have all kinds of ways that help you. Okay, physical movement. Setting alarms. I love alarms and little timers. So a 1-minute dance party with yourself. Like when you're at VRS, I would have a lot of consistent, like when it's my break time, I do my stretches. When I come back and like sit down after my break, like I would have certain, just tying those periods of movement to things that you're already doing during the day can be super helpful. Okay. I'm just checking in with time and we're actually doing good. Okay. So those are the first draft ideas. So hopefully you got at least one thing in there that might be helpful. The second section that we're going to go through is on boundaries. If I could teach one topic that I think is the most powerful to helping us avoid or come back from burnout, it would be working on our boundaries. And what does that freaking mean? It's such a common thing to say like, oh, good boundaries, bad boundaries, but what are boundaries? Like what does that mean? So I like to describe it, and I picked this picture because it has a fence. I like to teach about and think about boundaries as our invisible fence, our space. Or like, I love the movie Dirty Dancing, where they're like, this is my space, this is your space. Yes, what are they? Let's cha-cha or something. So it's about recognizing what is mine and what is yours. Where is the delineation? And it actually starts on the inside, which we'll get to. So the first thing I want to like, maybe these are like little, this is my advertisement for boundaries, okay? So boundaries, the first thing that they can do for us is they protect our energy. So it's like a glass or a pool. Imagine if you had a water glass or if you had this giant pool and you poured the same amount of water into both vessels, if your boundaries are loose and undefined and unclear, you're going to end up with that much energy, that much life force in your giant swimming pool because your boundaries are way out here. If you are clear about what is yours and what is not, and how much time and resources and energy you have to give to something, if you're clear about what that is, then you can make sure that you're staying filled up, that what you have is enough to fill that vessel. And this isn't about it's not about keeping other people out. It's not about making other people behave in certain ways or even keeping people away. It's really about recognizing like what energy is mine and what do I want to do with it? How do I want to spend that precious energy that I have? Okay. The second point that I like to make about boundaries is boundaries are teaching others how to treat us. We are setting an example of what is okay for us and what is not okay. And that's our job. And the first person that we need to teach how to treat us is ourselves. So when we are willing to break agreements with ourselves, when we are caught up in believing that inner critic that's saying the most horrible things about ourselves that we would never say to another human being, we are breaking our own boundaries, our own agreements with ourselves. And this, again, is not to be, is not to put judgment on ourselves, is not to create guilt or blame or shame. It's actually to inspire compassion for ourselves. Like, oh, it hurts when we do that. And it makes it harder to show up and act in ways that are healthy and feel good. So we are teaching others how to treat us by how we treat ourselves. And at the core, our boundaries are an outward expression. They're an outward symbol of our internal guidance system, that inner GPS that knows what is true for us, what is right for us, what we need. It's in there. I like to think of it as like this GPS, like Siri, that's talking to us inside. That the more we're listening and the more we're acting and honoring that, the more we're living in line with our boundaries and what we need. So they start inside. They start in us, and they are then expressed outside. Okay, so I asked you to, and it may have sounded really weird, I asked you to get like a little bite of something, a little snack, it could be anything. It doesn't have to be something to put in your mouth, but it works well if it is something to put in your mouth. So I have a smoothie here, which I think I actually might use. And so what I want you to do is, and I'm gonna lead us through, where did I put that? This exercise that I put in your resources. It's called the Hell Yes Checklist. This is about getting us in touch with our inner yes, that inner feeling that knows when you want something, when something is right for you and you can feel it inside. You're like, yeah, there's nothing in you that wants to turn that thing down or say no. We want to know what that feels like, because then we can know when we're not feeling that inner yes, when we're feeling the inner like, maybe, or the inner no. We want to know what those things feel like. Okay, so this is a practice session to listen to that part of ourselves. So grab your little whatever you have, okay, and I want you, okay, first, if you're sitting, that's fine. If you're standing, that's even better, but sitting works fine, and I'm gonna stay sitting. But I want you to put your feet on the floor. So like you can feel the bottoms of your feet, maybe in your shoes, that's fine, but just the fact that they're flat and they're like connected to the ground, okay? And sit up so that your spine is long, because what we're wanting to feel is how our body's gonna move in relation to this thing that we're gonna hold, okay? And I want you, if you feel comfortable, to go ahead and close your eyes. And I want you to hold this thing that you have in your left hand. Your left hand is also known as your receptive hand. Excuse me, your non-dominant hand, not necessarily your left, your non-dominant. Okay. So you have your thing in your non-dominant hand. You're feeling it in your palm. And I want you to think about what it is, what it represents to you. If it is a piece of food, think about how it might taste, how it might feel as you're chewing it, as you're swallowing it, as it's going down into your stomach. Just imagine that. If it's not a piece of food, I want you to think about what you might do with this thing, what this thing means to you, what it symbolizes. Just think about all the qualities you can of it. And I want you to take a couple of deep breaths. So you're really tuning into your breath here. And then I want you to let your body sort of move as it wants to, and notice if it pulls toward this thing, if it's like leaning into this object that you have, or if it is sort of pushing away from this thing, like your body's getting a little farther away. You may feel movement, that forward and back movement. You may feel heat or cold in your body. You might feel tingling somewhere. What we're doing is we're getting to know our own body's signals. And when you feel like you have any kind of a read, so we're gonna close this exercise now, but whatever kind of a read you got, and feel free to open your eyes and come back, I want you to act on it. So if you got a read that was like, yes, I want this thing, I want to eat it, or whatever it is you have to do with it, go ahead and put it in your mouth and honor that feeling in your body. If you got a read on it that was either neutral, like, I'm not sure, or if it was like a no, I want you to set that thing down and say, thank you. Thank you for that information. This is a practice that you can do all the time. You can start doing it with anything and everything. Should I check my phone? Should I, take a nap? Should I, whatever it is, and just get used to feeling into your body, like what do I feel deeply inside myself? And just as an experiment to get to know yourself better, and this relates to the next slide, part of boundaries and part of getting to know our own navigation system is that we are treating ourselves like a friend. You are the only person you will spend your whole life with. Let me say that again. You are the only person you will spend your whole life with. We don't value that relationship enough a lot of times. And again, that's not the space for judgment or shame. That's a space for compassion to go, oh, friend, like, let's get to know each other. And so when you want to get to know someone, when you have a new friend and you're like, oh, you get excited about spending time with them. You get excited about learning what they enjoy, what they like, what they don't like, their little quirks. See if you can turn that curiosity and that interest on yourself. And maybe this is one way, like this practice that we just did. Maybe it's taking yourself on little dates, going for a walk, and just finding, like, what do I enjoy? Do I love the smell of the flowers? Do I love to see the clouds? Do I love to feel the breeze? Like, do I hate the rain? Do I love the rain? Let's get curious about ourselves, okay? So treating yourself like a friend is another way to help get to know what are your boundaries. Okay, and then the last, well, actually it's not the last, but the next way is that we want to tune into that joy. So that feeling, just like that hell yes, that is this space inside of us that knows when something's right for us. And joy is a really good indicator of that. True joy, where we feel connected, we feel aligned, we feel like sort of lit up by something. And it doesn't always have to be positive. We can feel joy even in dark times of grief or sorrow. We can feel that sense of connection or that sense of like oneness. So I want to make it really simple here though, and let's see if our polls will work again. I want you to think back to when you were a kid, because that sometimes is an easier way for us to tap into joy. What did you love doing? And it looks like this poll isn't going to launch either, and I'm not sure what's happening. Shoot. Well, maybe type in the chat if you would be willing to, because it doesn't seem like this is going to come up. What were things that you loved to do as a kid? And I'll tell you what's on this list to kind of give you some ideas. I wrote hula hooping, jumping on a trampoline, swinging, riding your bike, rolling down a hill, singing, dancing, painting, building. Yes, and these are, oh yeah, playing with pets. Yeah, swimming, gymnastics, me too, Jennifer. That's one of my dear loves. Climbing trees, yes. Reading, yes, yes, yes. Okay, you all got this. Cartwheels, yeah. Dancing, singing, yes. Okay, I hope you're writing these down. So there's a spot on your self-care plan to write down what brings me joy. And so maybe one or two of those things were things from your childhood that you're like, oh. So some of those gymnastics things my body doesn't do anymore, but handstands are one thing that I can still do, and I do them against the wall. And I just feel so free when I'm upside down like that. Yeah, so write down a couple things that bring you joy. Okay, and I'm gonna forge ahead. We're gonna learn to love our no. Stephen Covey, in his book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which I so recommend, Rebecca, yes, yes. Okay, he says, you have to decide what your highest priorities are and have the courage, pleasantly, smilingly, non-apologetically, to say no to other things. And the way you do that is by having a bigger yes burning inside. So this is one of my tricks for saying no. As a people pleaser, it is something that I've had a long and tormented relationship with this little word no. But what I'm finding is when I can tap into what the yes is. So for example, I may be saying no, no, I'm not gonna go to that, well, actually right now, during COVID, like we're saying no to a lot of things. We're not saying no just to say no. We're saying no so that we can say yes to, for me, it's protecting my parents. Like there are a lot of things I don't do because I just want to make sure that I'm limiting exposure for other people. So for me, that's the yes that I'm getting in touch with. So whenever you're faced with wanting or needing to say no to something, you can ask yourself, what is it that I actually am choosing instead of this? And sometimes that really frees up our energy to joyfully say, oh no, this isn't the right opportunity for me, or this isn't the right time or the right thing for me. I actually really am doing, engaged in this other thing. And you may or may not, your explanation, I love to say no is a complete sentence. So it doesn't need an explanation, but inside it can really change the way we feel when we say it, when we are aware of what we're choosing instead. Okay, we're gonna move into energy budgeting. And I love this. I have discovered this website, Unsplash. They have all these photos that you can use on all your stuff for free. And it's people who are just amazing photographers. And so I like to just look through there. So some of these pictures I'm so pleased with because I'm like, oh, these things are so good. The little piggy bank. So we're going to talk about budgeting our energy, just like you would budget your money. So I want you to think about where where you're spending your energy, where your energy is going to. Things like they could be mental, the things that you're thinking about, that inner self-critic, just the plans and the thoughts that you're making. Your energy could be going to emotional sources. We could be feeling any number of ways, but emotions take our energy also. Physical outputs, just purely doing, working, making food, all the things of life that we are doing. Our energy could be going to specific people, to worries, like we talked about, to the responsibilities we have, to work. So think for yourself, and I think there's a spot on your self-care plan to write down where is your energy going. These things aren't necessarily negative. They aren't inherently negative. Just like spending money and receiving money, there's not really anything positive or negative about that. It just is. We're just choosing where we're putting our energy, where we're getting our energy from. So try as much as possible to let go of any judgment around this, but do notice if you have a strong, like, yes, I love doing that thing, or, ooh, that when I think about that thing, I feel really drained. Pay attention to that, because that's that GPS system. And we're going to skip the polls because I think the poll decided to not work anymore, which is okay. But we'll think about now, where does your energy come from? Where do you get your energy? And this lesson specifically in Burnout Proof Bootcamp is a really deep one. So I just am condensing it down to the bare minimum. But just to start us thinking about energy in terms of something we're taking in, something that we're putting out. So your energy could come from mental stimulation, emotional sources, physical, spiritual, activities that fill you up in all sorts of ways, all those ways, people and the practices that support you. So write down a few of the things that predictably give you energy, that help you to feel more filled up. And when you come away with this, part of why I do these worksheets, these self-care plans, is that this gives you a real distilled way to then glance and look at, like, I'm in need of some real energy, like not the chocolate caffeine kind. What do I have on my list here? And you might find something that you can do in that moment to help replenish your own energy. So it's really like a budget. It's really like thinking about, we can't just spend money and spend money and spend money. We have to make sure we have some money coming in to cover those expenses. Same thing with a vehicle. If you have a car, you can't just drive it forever. You have to put gas in it. You have to, or charge the battery. Maybe some cars don't need gas, but they need some sort of input, right, in order to be able to give us that output. So we want to get more conscious and aware of where this energy is coming from and where it's going. And that means, how do we monitor it? So in our vehicle, we may have a gas gauge or maybe a battery gauge, telling us where that energy level is. So again, going back to the hell yes checklist, it's like getting used to, what are my body's signals when my energy is high and full? What do I feel like? What does it start to feel like when it's getting low? What do I notice about myself? And am I paying attention? Like, am I staying aware? What helps keep me monitoring that? So that may be a weekly check-in for you. It may be a daily check-in. Having some monitoring built into your self-care routine can be really helpful, especially in the beginning when you're getting to know your own cues. Okay. Tend your garden. So this is really more about, how are we filling ourselves up? How are we tending to ourselves in mind, body, and spirit? And right now, we talked a little about body at the beginning. I want to just focus on mind for right now. And this is really about our self-talk and what's going on in our inner dialogue. And I like this concept of AM, FM. So it's sort of like, and I don't know if anyone listens to the radio anymore. This is sort of old school now. Okay, yeah. But, we had the AM, FM channels. So it's sort of like your self-talk. You can think of the AM channel is against me. What is being said in there that's against you? That's the inner critic that is at its most foundational, that is just unhelpful. It's not helping you toward being your best self. And then the FM channel, we could say, is for me. What is that inner dialogue that is building you up, that is helping you problem solve, that is helping you see an issue in a way that gives you more choices, that feels more empowering? You might call this like your inner coach. Just at its most basic form, it's more helpful. It helps you forward. It helps you to find your way. So we can start tuning into our self-talk. There's a fun activity in Burnout Proof Bootcamp where I call it being an index card detective. I have you carry around an index card and just start writing down those thoughts that you hear when you start tuning into what that self-talk is. We want to write it down because then we can work with it. Then we can actually look at it. And so the second part is weed your garden. So then you might be finding those AM thoughts that you realize they're not helpful. They may not even be true. A lot of time they're not 100% true. So an example, and this is sort of a COVID related example, but I hear from a lot of clients, and I've had this thought and this worry too. What if I get sick? What if someone I love gets sick? Like that's a thought that can come up. And so something we can ask ourselves as we tune into a thought like that is the thought 100% true? So in this case, I am not currently sick. So it isn't 100% true because it's a question about the future that has an uncertain, I don't know how likely that is. So I can say, okay, it's not 100% true. All right. And what I can do with that then, this is the next slide, plant helpful beliefs, is I can consciously work with my thoughts to help find a thought that might be more true and more helpful. And what I want to do is, this is sort of mixed in with affirmations. I'm a fan of affirmations if we use them in a way that is helpful. We don't want to use affirmations in a way that is negating emotions that need space to be felt and to be processed. We don't want to just mask that with affirmations. But when we can feel into a more helpful thought, then that can shift some things. So a more helpful thought may be, I am healthy. I am healthy right now. I'm going to ground in the knowledge that I am currently healthy. And often those worries have a grain of truth in them. They have something that can be helpful for us to act on. So that worry about, oh, what if I get sick, or what if someone I love gets sick, might help me to realize I want to have a plan in place. Like, what can I be doing for my immune system right now? What do I have on hand in case someone in my family gets sick? Like, I want to plan in a way that's helpful, and I want to be planting and nourishing thoughts that help to keep me healthy as well. So it's just more and more bringing awareness to those thoughts and working with them in a way that feels more helpful. It's just all about like what feels helpful, what feels unhelpful. Okay. Now we're going to talk just a little bit about making more time for yourself. Okay. I'll make sure I have the right stuff in front of me. Okay, so we have talked, some of these things that we've talked about are already can be really helpful for like carving out little bits of time for yourself. So when you're listening to your guidance system, you can be getting messages, and if you're acting on them, they might be telling you it's time to go to bed, or it's time to take a nap, or get up from your computer and stretch for 30 seconds. Those kinds of messages that I don't know if you all feel this too, but I often am like, just one more minute. I just got to finish this one more thing. Just, kind of like my toddlers used to do when they were getting out of bed at night. We want to be listening to our guidance system. That can help us make more time for ourselves. Developing our healthy boundaries. Also, when our You know, when our glass is full, when we know what we have time and energy for and what we don't, that can help us to make more time for ourselves. Treating ourselves like a friend, taking ourselves on dates, or just listening to what we like or how we're feeling. And then this last piece, create habits of self-care. So this goes back to the not muscling it, not making it one more thing that we have to check off our list. I love to teach habit formation for this. So I want you to think about, maybe it's an idea from your list, from your self-care plan that you have already, or maybe it's something else that you have in mind, but I want you to choose an activity that you can do for 5 minutes a day. Something that you look forward to doing with yourself. So this can be like your little date. It might be journaling. It might be going for a walk outside. It might be meditating. It might be sitting and staring out the window. Whatever it is, something that feels good to you and something that you can do in 5 minutes or even less. And so we're going to talk about how to make that a habit. So this information comes from a man named BJ Fogg. He's in your resources. I love his work. And he has a great 5-day free class that just helps you to build some new habits. And it's really simple. It's not a lot of work. So he has these three things he teaches. The first is we want to make that new habit tiny. We want to anchor it to an existing habit, and then we want to celebrate when we've done it. And I'm going to go through each of these really quickly. So making it tiny. So I asked you to decide on something 5 minutes a day that you could do. For the first week, I want you to only do it for 30 seconds. And that might seem ridiculous. He gives an example of flossing your teeth. Because a lot of people will say, I don't floss my teeth enough. I want to make this habit of flossing my teeth, right? So he says, floss one tooth. Do not floss all your teeth. Floss one tooth. And people are like, that's ridiculous. This is about building a habit. This isn't about long term. Like in the long term, hopefully we're going to be flossing all of our teeth. This is about, how many of us really thought about brushing our teeth this morning? I know during COVID, I've had a lot of people confess like, oh, I forgot to brush my teeth. But for the most part, it's not something you write on your to-do list. It's not something you think about. It's just like, it is a habit, a deep habit where it's like, we do it and we're done. So we want to make these self-care things habits like that level where it's not taking extra energy. It's just something we do. So we're going to break it down to 30 seconds, okay? So you make it tiny. You anchor it to an existing habit. This is the gold piece. Something that you're already doing. So brushing your teeth is a great example because if it's a habit for you, you could tie them together. So he says with like the flossing the teeth, you would set your floss right like on top of your toothbrush or right in front of your toothbrush. So you remember when you go to grab your toothbrush, this is your anchor. You're going to go, oh, I need to floss my teeth or my tooth. He wants you to floss one tooth. Okay. So you have lots of anchors in your day. We have tons of things we do out of habit without thinking about them. So maybe hitting the alarm in the morning, pre-COVID, like getting in the car, driving to work. It might be just sitting down at your chair or pushing the button on your computer to turn on your computer. The coffee pot is one for me where I start my coffee pot. That's my stretching time. Like as soon as it's a habit. You touch the button, you start doing the thing that you want to do. So pick what your anchor is, what that existing habit is that you're going to tie to. You can also replace a habit this way. So for example, if your habit is to sit, and I use this example because this has been a habit for me. If your habit is to sit down in the evening to watch Netflix with some ice cream, then Netflix is your anchor and you might want to switch out what the habit is. So instead of the ice cream, and instead of just saying, I'm not going to eat ice cream anymore when I watch Netflix, you substitute something else. So for me, a cup of herbal tea can be a really nice substitute. It just has to be my habit. So then I just switch it out. So you can replace a habit this way also. So it would look like this. He has you do, after I blank, I do my anchor, I will blank, do my new habit, okay? And you have this like 30 seconds that you're gonna do. The last piece of this is you celebrate. And the reason it feels really silly to be like, woohoo, I just drank my herbal tea, or woohoo, I just flossed my one tooth. This gives our brain a hit of dopamine. This gives us a natural reward that then tells our brains look for that again. Oh, where's that tooth floss? I want to feel good again because we're going to get a woohoo. So whatever it is for you that you can do quickly, it can even just be a mental shift where inside, you know the feeling when you like smile inside, you're like, ah, I did that thing. That feeling is a little hit. It is the dopamine hit. Checking off a to-do list that can also be another one. So thinking for yourself about what gives me that little rush of, whew, you want to do that right after. And so what we're doing here again is we're doing this work for a short period of time, and there's different research on how long it takes to make a habit. 21 days is a really common number that gets thrown around. So it could be work for those 21 days. But the goal is, if we're doing a system, something like this, we're creating a habit that then is sort of like we're not even thinking about it. We're starting the coffee pot and we're doing our stretching. So then our body is feeling better during the day. It's just part of our days. Okay. Okay. And then this last piece, turn bad days into good. I don't know if it's data or data. Someone needs to tell me because I know there's a difference. But we want to get information from when we get tripped up, when our best laid plans don't happen as we wanted them to, we have a choice to beat ourselves up and go back into the stories of, I never, I always do this, or I never, whatever it is. Instead, we want to try to look at what can I learn from this? What happened here? Where did it fall apart? Maybe how can I account for that in my anchor or in my habits to help myself next time? This is really about setting our future self up for more success. It's about like giving ourselves a gift for the future. So we want to look at what can we learn when we have something that feels like a slip up, or where we kind of get off of what we intended. Okay. I'm going to share with you 2 upcoming workshops through Burnout Proof Academy. So Burnout Proof Bootcamp is starting October 7th, and I have a little discount code for you all who went through the accelerated version. If you want to join us, then this code is in your resource list, and you can go check it out. So this is 6 weeks. It's designed to be 6 weeks. You can take as long with it as you want. It's all self-paced online. We do have 1 live meeting a month that is optional, and it's recorded, so if it doesn't work for your schedule, that's fine. But it's a time to get some interaction, and we actually have interaction in that one. I know this is like a lot of me talking at you, but yeah, so that's if you're looking for something that's deeper and longer and really like creating deeper change, that's the one. I'm also planning monthly short self-care Saturday workshops. I'm calling them Saturday School. So the October one is self-care for stressful times. I'm teaching a specific practice that can be really helpful as we're going through. It seems like this workshop got developed in the beginning of 2020, and it's still just, I mean, maybe more relevant now than it even was at the beginning of COVID. So there's that happening in October. And then this is just some of my information. Yay. So I know it's 6 o'clock here because I'm on the West Coast. You all are probably all over, but I'm gonna come back here. Stop sharing. Okay. And I forgot to tell you this at the beginning, but I am happy to stay on. We're done with the workshop. You've got all the information. If there's questions, if anybody just wants to chat, I've never done like a 1 hour that felt like fast and dirty. So if you have questions, or if you just want to say hi, I see people that I love on here too. So But I'll say goodbye in case anybody is ready to go for the evening. I know it's even really late on the East Coast. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for taking time for yourselves. This is a revolutionary act right now for us to be prioritizing space to get our own needs met so that we can keep showing up and doing the work that needs to be done in the world. So thank you all for being here. Yay. Awesome.
Can you
Okay.
expand on your calendar that you had in your
Yes. Thank you for bringing that up. Yes. So the idea with the self-care tracker, this is from Burnout Proof Bootcamp too, and people really like this gives you a super simple way to, and if you're a person that does like to make the check mark, because I am, especially when I'm building new habits, you can hang this up and you can do a little stamp on it, a little sticker, whatever it is, but it's meant to be a really simple thing that just gives you a visual on like, I took time for me today. Yay. And you could even do your celebration when you put your sticker on here.